Could Ford Motor Company be the first to license Tesla's full self-driving technology? Well, CEO Jim Farley was interviewed recently, and he spoke very highly of Tesla, saying that they have mutual respect for each other. Farley said that the partnership with Tesla's Supercharger network is going really well, with now over 100,000 applications for the adapter. He proudly announced that they are the first manufacturer to scale on the Supercharger network, and that Ford is number 2 in the electric vehicles in US behind Tesla. He also confirmed that customers who buy an EV, like the Mach-E or F-150 Lightning, don't go back to gas cars. So we've got a number of videos to show you, a number of clips, him talking about Ford being an AI company and his relationship with Tesla. I've got Hans Nelson joining us, and he's got his own YouTube channel you should check out right after watching the show, Hans C. Nelson on YouTube. Thanks, Hans.
Thanks for having me, Herbert.
So we've done a number of shows on Ford CEO Jim Farley in the past. And, you've broken down for me in the past, just the kind of company Ford is and their possible partnership with Elon. There's a lot of breadcrumbs here. And I think in this interview, there might be a few more. I'll start with, Ford CEO on this interview saying, I think there's a mutual respect of his relationship with Elon and him. They've really established a good relationship. In this interview, he emphasized that mutual respect. And he said Ford's partnership with Tesla includes access to the Supercharger network, and there's early successes and plans for future collaborations. Let's go watch this little clip of him talking about the Supercharger partnership. Is Ford and Tesla friends, or are they foes? Let's watch this.
We just started using the Supercharger network. I think we have 100,000 applications for the adapter, so it's very.
Wow. That's a lot of adapters.
We've shipped. I think we shipped it about a couple thousand so far. The people who get them like them. We like anything we've learned. The charging port has to be maybe a little bit different in the car. The Lightning, you have to kind of inch over because they didn't design their charging system. But we're really we are the first manufacturer to scale on the Supercharger network. It's going well so far. We really appreciate working with Tesla. Between the number 1 and number 2 players in the country, we think giving our customers access to the Supercharger network is a good move. But it's early days, we still need 90,000 adapters.
You'll get them, right? I'm hoping.
I texted Elon last night. We'll see what he says.
What is that? Look, from the outside looking in, I see you tweet him. Mm-hmm. I follow you on Twitter or X. I'm sorry, X. Yeah. What is that relationship like?
I think there's a mutual respect. Look, I think when Elon started and started scaling Model Y and Model 3, he very much followed the Henry Ford model with the Model T, increasing his utilization of his plant and bringing the cost down for customers as he went mainstream with EVs. I think it's been largely a positive relationship. In 120 years, we've been through a lot as a company. We know what a partnership should be and what's realistic to expect out of a partner. We compete. Mach-E and Model Y, they're in the market competing every day. So we're realistic, but so far, the partnership has gone well, and we have a professional relationship, and it's mutual respectful.
Does he text you right back? Because if you texted me, I'm dropping everything. I'm
he is really incredible person. He absolutely does. He very much made this decision based on the adoption of EVs in the country, and of course it's good for him. His charging network is very valuable and a really wonderful asset for the company. But he's very responsive, and I think it's because he knows we respect each other.
I will say.
Okay, so maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I thought that they've got a good relationship. They text each other. And he's, saying really wonderful things. And he said, told the story about how Ford knows what they can do and what they can't do, when to partner, when not to partner. What was your take out of this?
Yeah, I always really enjoy listening to Jim Farley's interviews. He is an excellent public company CEO who is not a founder. So, one of the things that I look for in companies that I invest in is founder-led companies. And some people may quibble about whether Elon is the founder of Tesla, but he's effectively the founder, even if there were other people that were officially the founding team while he was just an investor at the earliest stages. But he had to completely take over that company, and he built it from like the vast majority of all Teslas ever made. There were, handfuls of Roadsters that were delivered before he took over as CEO, and that was it. And since then, he has been the CEO, and he has shepherded this company from then to now. And the types of decisions that a founder CEO has the leeway to make are completely different than the types of decisions that a CEO who comes up through the ranks or potentially even gets hired in from outside, and doesn't have the relational capital inside of the company or the ownership stake of, or, there's just a whole number of dynamics inside of a company that make it hard for someone like Jim Farley to operate Ford the way that Elon operates Tesla. That said, he really gets it, and I have been impressed by the way that he, for example, took a road trip in one of their, I believe it was a Mach-E at the time. He's also road tripped in the F-150 as far as I'm aware, and tried to get a hands-on set of experiences so that he can put himself in the mind of Ford's customers for these EV vehicles, and immediately noticed, hey, the charging infrastructure that we have access to makes this a terrible customer experience. And it wasn't too long after that we got the announcements that Ford was then going to partner with Tesla to get access to the Tesla Supercharger network. And of course, they were the first company to do that. And so they really did lead the way. And so while, Biden may say that Mary Barra led in electric vehicles, I think Jim Farley is the next CEO here in the United States behind Elon, who has done the most for trying to accelerate the adoption of electric transport here. And he makes high quality decisions, and like you said, he has a lot of respect for Tesla. He openly acknowledges what Tesla and Elon have done for this industry and this sector. He doesn't disparage them, and he doesn't try to take credit for work that Ford did not do. And I think that allows him to have a relationship with Elon that's different than the relationship that Mary Barra has with Elon. And it does pave the way for future collaborations. I am hopeful that Ford will be one of the first external companies that can actually adopt Tesla's full self-driving technology. The framework for that partnership, I think, is already something that we kind of have an outline for how that could work based on what they're doing with the Supercharger. But we also know that Jim has really looked at autonomous driving capability and made that a strong focus of his and priority for Ford. And so their development of Blue Cruise and, their other technologies that go into their self-driving technology is something that they've invested a lot into. And so I don't know if he's going to fall prey to the sunk cost fallacy and continue to go down that road, or if he will be able to recognize at some point that, hey, you know what, this is just not going to get to where we need it to go. We need to actively adopt FSD and do that partnership with Elon and Tesla. That remains to be seen, but I'm definitely hopeful because I think it would be good for all parties involved. I think that would be the best way for Ford to secure their future moving forward.
Mm-hmm. And then there is a Ford's Skunk Works project division that they announced, 6 months ago, where they said that there's a separate division of people in Ford that's working on an electric vehicle. So some people are thinking maybe that's the partnership with Tesla. That's a bit of a stretch, but could be the case. Here's the next clip. Here is Jim Farley talking about Ford's AI capabilities, their Blue Cruise, and how far he thinks that this AI can take them.
What is your view on where the car will be in our lifetime? does a car drive by itself? I see what a company in China like XPeng is doing, flying cars. To me, it looks like a helicopter, whatever the hell it is. I mean, what does the next 30 years look like for the actual physical thing that's a car?
I don't think really anyone with a lot of confidence can tell you what 30 years looks like, but it's pretty clear to us what the next 5 to 10 years look like. You know, it's not going to be a future that's only EVs. It'll be a mixed powertrain of EREVs, PHEVs, hybrids, pure ICE, if you're towing something, and electrics. And electrics will be a big part of the industry, but not the only part of the industry. We're going to have a lot of software in our lives. The trips are going to change. The trips are not going to be from point A to point B with just bringing in your mobile device and kind of basically catching up with the rest of your life. Trips are going to be different now. With level 3 autonomy, where you're going to be able to take your eyes off the road on a sunny day on the highway in 2 years, people are going to do conference calls. They're going to do.
Can I talk to you? Will my car be able to talk to you? Like if you pass me by,
of course,
I'm like, that's Jim Farley in his Mustang.
But you would have to give it permission to share your data, but just like your phone. But absolutely, and that makes the whole transportation industry a lot safer if the cars can talk to each other. You know, we have 1,500 semiconductors in the average Ford now, and it's the most technological product that I can think of. We have up 6 to 8 cameras in every car. We have radar systems. We'll have LiDAR systems. You know, the cars are unbelievable, but they're also data capturing machines. It means we have to be really careful about people's privacy and about remotely controlling the vehicles, because they can be remotely controlled with autonomy. They can crash into things. There are a lot of dangers with the new digitally enabled products, and our policymakers have to catch up with that reality.
Are they even paying attention to it?
Yes, the U.S. government, the president issued an executive order a couple months ago. All aspects of the federal government are looking at, you know, data privacy and autonomy and the policy around level 2 and level 3 autonomy. Forget about robo-taxis. You know, there's a lot of exciting AV automated vehicle technology between robo-taxis and today that will be accessible to millions of people. We have over 26 million hours of Blue Cruise hands-free operation now. And we have hundreds of thousands of people get up in the morning and press that button and drive hands-free now on highways. And we're starting to see the government engage in these important policy areas that will really have a big impact on people's daily lives.
Okay, so on one hand, he talks about the future of EVs, not EVs, but cars in general, vehicles, and he thinks it's going to be a mixed world still, not saying it's going to be 100% electric vehicles, which he contradicts later when he says that electric vehicles, once people buy them, they don't go back to ICE cars, but he still thinks there's a role for all sorts of kinds of vehicles. And then he talks about, you know, there's going to be a tech-driven future, and he speaks highly of his own technology. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, you have to remember at a company like Ford, you know, they operate on a different type of business model than Tesla does. And so they are making plans for the next 7 years of vehicles that they're going to produce at any given time, roughly. And so they kind of know what their plans are for the next 7 years. And what he's explicitly said there is that their plans are to produce a variety of vehicles, both, you know, hybrid, any number of different varieties of hybrid, then pure ICE, then pure electric, and kind of everything in between. So he's not taking a bold stance on trying to make a transition. At this point in time, I don't know if that is a smart or unwise decision, because the auto market definitely is cyclical and there's a lot of challenges. And, you know, it's one of the things that I'm unsure of is whether the fast followers are in a better position or a worse position than the last mover in this space to go from ICE to EV, that, you know, a lot of other people can spend a lot of money, figure out a lot of things, run into a lot of pitfalls. And maybe the last ICE legacy OEM, if they have a big enough cash pile at the end of the thing, can come in and mop up all of the other people who made all the early investments and all the mistakes that go along with those early investments. I don't know that that's likely, but I think that's definitely one possible scenario. And it seems like lots of the OEMs are thinking that maybe that is a smart strategy. Um, all that to be said, I think that there's one of the differences that you see between Jim Farley and Elon is, Elon has a very high amount of conviction in the direction of the technology that they need to produce. And it's very narrow, it's very specific that Elon wants to develop full self driving, and he wants to do that with the least amount of sensors possible and the most efficient low power computer possible, and then all of it built on a pure EV foundation. And so that amount of focus allows Elon to put the entire resources of the company of Tesla behind accomplishing that one very narrow, very specific thing. And unfortunately, this is one of the areas where I'm not as impressed with Jim, is that most of the OEMs are saying, we're going to do everything. We're going to do everything. And by, what that implies is that we're not going to do anything well. And Jim was completely correct in his comments about how important it is to get software right. And unfortunately, I mean, do you think that a company besides a Google or a Tesla or some of these software first companies is going to be able to execute that software correctly? I just have my doubts that any of these legacy OEMs, whether it's Hyundai, who I'm also very impressed with, obviously much less impressed with GM, but their software efforts. We've seen Volkswagen fail miserably at this with their Cariad project. And I think I'm going to have to throw Ford in that bucket as well. Like, I don't have high hopes for how well they can solve this software problem. And the software problem is going to be at the core of making a viable consumer product that is competitive in the marketplace against not only Tesla, but a lot of these Chinese automakers like NIO, like XPeng, like BYD, and then, a whole host of other ones behind them that are really, really, really aggressively trying to develop low cost, high quality, good performing products. And, the Chinese auto market is the largest auto market in the world, and it has the widest range of consumers. They sell all the way from the highest and most expensive products all the way down to cars that are way smaller, way cheaper, way lower quality than anything that we would allow to be sold here in the United States. And that broad ecosystem kind of allows for a competitive marketplace that produces some very high quality companies that do make incredible products. So, that's going to be a difficult challenge that someone, any of the US automakers have to face over the next 10 to 15 years. And that's something that I think that puts a lot more pressure on someone like Jim Farley to hurry up and stop trying to think that you can solve this self-driving autonomous technology problem by yourself, especially going with something, he mentioned LiDAR specifically, and it just kind of goes to show you that the technical prowess inside of there is relying on the most conservative path possible that still doesn't have a proven use case, that it is fully functional and fully viable in a form factor that is scalable. That, if Waymo is doing that, yes, and that's why people want to go this direction, but the Waymo vehicles are not profitable, and there's a lot of structural reasons why that's the case. And so if you want to make this technology, you also need to think about how much it's going to cost you to build it and how exceptional of a product that is going to be in, especially for Ford. Waymo can put all their vehicles in a specific area to operate. Fords are going to be driving all over the country. They need a system that can operate in every city in America, not just in Chandler, Arizona or San Francisco. And the way that has worked for Waymo to do that I don't know that it scales to the entire United States. And so, a little bit disappointed on that front.
Yep, agreed. And then, so good points about Tesla or Ford's capabilities and them recognizing the capabilities. Let's watch this next clip about how Jim Farley thinks about their AI capabilities.
Your counterpart at Tesla, Elon, views his company as an AI company. Is Ford an AI company?
I don't think we constrain ourselves that way. I mean, we're a passion company. We don't see our vehicles as appliances. They're not toasters on wheels.
No.
Or iPhones on wheels. Our vehicles do the daily work of building America through our Pro vehicles. The F-150 is the best-selling vehicle in the United States. And has been for 40 plus years because it's the most versatile product. We have an electric one, we have a hybrid one. The hybrid one can power your house for 6 days with Pro Power on board. And of course we have internal combustion F-150s. And with 2 rows of seating, you could practically live in an F-150. I'm sure someone out there is living in an F-150.
I'm sure they are.
So I think we have of course, our vehicles will be filled with AI, as they already are, to do Blue Cruise. But we don't limit ourselves that way. We want to build vehicles that people care about, that change the world, not just because they're efficient technology, but because they make people's lives better and because people care about them. We want people to name their cars.
What?
Okay, comments on that?
I mean, it sounds great. And Ford does make exceptional work products. I think that there's potentially a good niche for them to continue to make products that are good work products. And I don't see super strong ambitions by Tesla to completely saturate that market. They are working on semi, but there's a whole range of vehicles in between the Cybertruck and the semi that Tesla has not shown that they specifically plan to fill. And Ford actually does create a lot of products in that space in between an F-150 and a semi. And those vehicles do a lot of the work that builds this country. And so he's 100% correct in that. And Ford is laudable for that reason. I hope that they have continued success in that area. But for him to basically blow off how important it is to get AI right between now and 2030, 2035, 2040, and just say nice sounding platitudes about how they want people to name their cars. I mean, those are the types of politically correct, fluffy, non-committal statements that I would expect for someone who has to be the politician that unfortunately Jim Farley has to be to operate in that role at that company as a non-founder CEO.
He knows the limitations, basically. So yes, we are an AI company. Look, we've got Blue's Cruise, we've got AI all over, but it's not about AI. It's about the personality of the car. It's about our future of we're not toasters on wheels. Great, good comments, but you can see that he understands his limitations. So the final bit here is him saying that we think almost half of Americans would save money buying an electric vehicle. This is Jim Farley. Okay, an automaker, traditional OEM. Half of Americans would save money buying an EV. Customers who buy a Mach-E or F-150 Lightning don't go back to gas cars. And then he says, we're number 2 in electric vehicles in the US behind Tesla, a long way behind, but we are the number 2. So he's quite proud about that. Let's listen into what he says.
Hate him. Consumers are worried about they're going to run out of a charge going down the block. Isn't it just a better way, a more efficient way to get around?
It is for a lot of people. We think almost half of Americans would save money by buying an EV. Let's take the politics out of it. We think for customers, they love the flexibility. They love not having to go to the gas station. They love having a full tank every morning. They like having a digitally enabled car that normally comes with an EV. There's a lot of incredibly attractive consumer aspects of an EV. I think it started off as an expensive technology and one that was really dominated in the urban world where, politics play out. And of course, with the charging infrastructure and building a whole new infrastructure outside of gas stations, it was bound to be politicized, but that's not what we're focused on as a company. We're focused on the customer. We're seeing customers who buy a Mach-E or a Lightning, they don't go back to an ICE vehicle. It's like a different experience for them, and they don't want to go back to the other experience.
Is it hard to stay committed to EVs? I mean, you're a public company. Ford has said it's going to lose $4 or $5 billion, whatever it is, on EVs this year. Is it hard to stay committed to that vision when these losses are happening? And how long do you stay committed to it?
Well, I think, first of all, we're not going to invest in the future of EVs unless we're convinced we'll be profitable. So that's my job. I'm not going to allocate capital to my leadership team or anyone in the company if we don't think we're going to be profitable in the next cycle of products. So, that aspect is kind of undeniable. It's unnegotiable. We really believe in the consumer experience for an EV, and so we want the next ones to be more affordable. And that's why we're investing in more affordable EVs in the next cycle of products that people see from Ford in the next couple of years. We're number 2 in EVs in the U.S. behind Tesla, a long way behind, but we're still there. And people love their Mach-E's and Lightnings, and they're going to like the new ones even better. What's hard about it is making the physical changes to be profitable, to bring the cost down, to have large unit castings, to really change the way we engineer the vehicle to minimize that size of the battery, because the battery is so expensive and such a big driver of the cost. So the hard part for us is delivering and executing on affordable EVs that make money, just like Henry Ford did with Model T.
Okay, so he admitted that people who buy an electric vehicle, and they're, in his case, Mach-E's and F-150s, they don't go back to a gas car. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the consumer experience piece, that's why butts in seats is what sells Tesla, is because most people's perception of an electric vehicle before they've ever experienced one are filtered through those political leanings that Jim was referencing in that set of comments. But once you get into the car, you drive it, you feel the way that it drives, and it's just a completely different feel in the car, so much more responsive, so much more fun. And then in a Tesla, when you have the autopilot technology that comes with every single Tesla, and you get to use that, and you can interact with it just at the same type of level that you can interact with your other smart devices, like your Android phone or your iPhone or your tablets, whatever, your computers. And that's just, completely differentiated from any other automaker. Those things are exceptional. And they do make it a lot easier. And then that's not even to talk about the convenience of, if you are the type of driver who has access to a garage, and you can come and you can park in the garage and you can charge it every day, and you're not having to travel to any sort of supercharger for 99.9% of the miles that you drive. You don't have to, drive to a charging station or to a gas station, much less wait there for your fueling or your charging. All of those things are just so much nicer. And for most people, the driving that they do is a job. It's a drudgery. It's not something that they're doing for fun. There's a very driving can be fun, but there's a very limited set of use cases where that's the case. Most of the driving that we have to do is just because we need to get from here to there, and usually have to do it through roads and traffic that's not fun to deal with. And the software in Teslas, and to some extent also in these Fords, helps take a lot of that load off, and it is much nicer. And so those are the things that they need to be focused on. But the comments that he was making towards the end basically echo what Elon has said this whole time, that prototypes are easy, production is hard. Even for Ford, delivering not only vehicles that have all of those features, but vehicles that are produced at a price point low enough to where they can be profitable on selling those vehicles to customers. That's really, really hard. And one of the things that Sandy Munro has shown us, and Elon has talked about, is that a lot of times when you tear down a vehicle, you can actually see the structure of the organization that built that vehicle, because you can see this group of people was responsible for the engine. And then there was this group of people that was responsible for the transmission, and this group of people that was responsible for cooling, and all of these different subcomponents that are in there. And when you have all these scattered groups of people who are responsible for small sets of components, then it's a lot of hard work to figure out how these components that were not designed from the top down to all work together, how do we get them to work together? And that becomes difficult. And that's where you see all these interfaces. And that is the way that all these major OEMs operate, is they have lots of different small groups of people that work on developing different parts of the vehicle. And some of those people work inside of Ford. A lot of those people don't even work inside of Ford. They work at automotive suppliers, whether those are tier 1 suppliers or tier 2 suppliers or tier 3 suppliers. And the reason that Elon doesn't use hardly anywhere near the number of suppliers, are much, much more vertically integrated. They make in-house way more of the things, and the design teams that do all the work to figure out all those things that they're making, they are all brought together, and they're all forced not only to do the design work together, but then to see how the product is made on the assembly line so that they can make the smartest decisions possible. And that's what it seems like, that effort at Ford has been limited at best, and that they are still operating the same way they've kind of always operated. And that organizational structure, that organizational overhead and legacy tax that they have is what makes it so hard for them to make those same vehicles at the price that Tesla can make them for. And if they can't make them for the price that Tesla can make them for, are they going to be able to make them for the price that the Chinese competitor is going to be able to make them for? And if they can't do that, are they a financially viable company in selling those vehicles? Right now, their Blue division is not. Hopefully they can bridge that gap. Hopefully they can bring those costs down. But that's the challenge that Jim is wrestling with. And it's a very difficult challenge. And so far, we have not seen any legacy automakers solve that challenge. There are no profitable EV divisions in any of the legacy auto companies today. And so we are 12 years past when the Model S was first released, and Tesla became a profitable company based solely on the sales of the Model S.
That's why his comment that customers who buy a Mach-E or F-150 don't go back to an ICE vehicle. Half of Americans would save money buying an EV. He knows this is really the truth. Thank you so much, Hans. Really appreciate the analysis. It's always great to watch Jim Farley, his comments. He's wonderful. We like him a lot. Thank you very much, Hans. Follow him on his YouTube channel at Hans C. Nelson. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.